Very good. Thank you, Minister Smith, for being present in the House this evening and taking this topical issue. I do know, because I was in touch with Minister Simon Harris's office, that the Minister for Higher Education is engaged in the issue. I have spoken to him directly and indeed to his office, so I do know he's met the students involved in recent times. So I want to acknowledge that at the outset, that the Government are engaged on the matter. Minister, the issue that I raised today goes to Maynooth University. It's a university in my own constituency of North Kildare. It's also a very successful, large and growing university, a very important I suppose, dot on the map of the national educational infrastructure at higher level. It's a university that I've a huge amount of time for. My own daughter attended there recently, and I've been in the university on many, many occasions. I welcome their progressive in many ways, not least their commitment to a broad education, that they don't just educate silos to be particular disciplines, but they actually encourage and have a broad subject choice at the outset. However, they have fallen short on one item, and one very important item, which has exercised and concerned the student body greatly, and very understandably so. The issue of the levy. There was a referendum in the university a number of years ago, I think in the late 90s, to impose a levy upon the students attending the university, and the introduction of that levy was with a view to expanding the facilities on the campus, creating a student centre, creating greater student amenities, facilities, development of a sports and community engagement cluster, development of an arts and cultural quarter, and a very basic fundamental requirement that there will be a student centre that students could gather in, could sit down on and meet and chat and talk in, a place to have lunch, a place to talk to others. University is not just about lectures, it's about college life, and it's about the public square. And the conversations that happen on beanbags or on benches or on couches are an integral part of that student experience and that learning experience. And that is part, I think, the educational philosophy. But even more rudimentary, it's a place to get in from the rain and the cold and have a sandwich or have some lunch, somewhere to go, somewhere to gather. It's a pretty rudimentary requirement. What's more, the students have paid for it. The students, and speaking as a parent of a student, I suppose I've paid for it indirectly, as I paid a levy for my own daughter was attending there. And many, many students, and many, many parents indeed, for many, many years have paid this levy. The levy has been gathered into a fund. We don't know where that fund actually sits now. We don't know what the intended purpose is, because the college have announced very recently that the student centre is not now to be built. It is not on the plans, and the plans have changed. So I think it's a move in bad faith. I think that the students contributed in good faith for many years. They created a fund. The purpose of that fund, through referendum of the student body at the time, was that a student centre would be created, and the other arts, cultural and sporting hubs that I mentioned. That has now not happened. The money was gathered all right, but the flip side of the coin, that the student centre would be built, has not been delivered upon, and now they're being told it will not be delivered upon. The students are very, very exercised, rightly so, about this. Niall Daly, the president of the student body, led a walkout of students recently and protests on campus. He's engaged us with the Minister for Higher Education, and I know he has had engagements with Dr. Eva, the college president. But it's not good enough, Minister, frankly, and I know it's not a government issue. Government are not the governing body of Maynooth, but government have a role to play in engaging with all stakeholders, and I would say putting it very firmly to Maynooth University that you cannot do this, that it's not good enough to collect levies, particularly from a student body, of all people who have limited means and people who are struggling at the best of times, to collect money over a series of years for a student facility that is then not delivered upon. That's a breach of faith. And I would ask the government to intervene and make that view very clearly known to the college authorities. Thank you, Minister.
Gurmagad Cohirlig agus Gurmagad Achiachta Lawless. So Minister Harris wants to thank the Deputy for raising this matter, as it gives the opportunity to set out for the House the position with regard to the Maynooth Student Centre. Maynooth University recently informed the Department of Further and Higher Education, Research, Innovation and Science that its governing authority has taken the difficult decision to terminate the Maynooth University Student Centre contract. De Ferris does not have any direct involvement in the project in question, as no direct exchequer funding was being provided by the Department for this project, which was solely being funded by the European Investment Bank borrowings serviced by income from a student levy. However, all capital projects advanced by publicly funded higher education institutions must comply with the provisions of the Public Spending Code. Minister Harris understands that following detailed consideration on a number of matters, including the risk associated with continuing with a project that would then breach the public spending code, that the governing authority decided to terminate the contract. Higher education institutions, HEIs, are governed by the Universities Act 1997, the Institute of Technologies Act 1992 to 2006, and the Technological Universities Act 2018. Within the meaning of these acts, HEIs are autonomous bodies and they are responsible for their own day-to-day management and operational affairs, including dealing with policy and procedure in relation to any levy payable by students for services or campus facilities. The expenditure that has been incurred to date on the project will be met by the university from financial reserves. No financial contribution is being sought from the Exchequer, and there will be no impact on the student levy collected from the MU student body. Maynooth University has an ongoing programme of enhancement of student facilities. The current projects include additional social spaces for student use, additional study spaces, meeting pods for student meetings, enhanced furniture in existing spaces, additional parking, new bus terminus and a new outdoor gym. Maynooth University are considering the most appropriate means of meeting the need for additional student spaces on campus in the short and the long term in the overall context of achieving value for money in any future investment. Minister Harris met with student representatives on a range of issues on Thursday last, the 6th of October. The Students' Union from Maynooth University were represented at this meeting, and he listened to their concerns about the Student Centre and the Student Levy. Minister Harris also met with the chair of the governing authority at the university recently, and he strongly encouraged the university to continue engagement with the student representative body on the next steps for this project, and he understands that a further meeting with the student representative body is scheduled this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Thank you, Minister, for the reply. And I know the government, and I acknowledge that at the outset that Minister Harris is engaged on the issue. I appreciate the Minister's response that government money is not engaged, but I suppose with respect, I'm not sure I entirely agree with that, because the fact that a university is publicly funded, and albeit funding is earmarked from another source for a particular project, as a collective it receives funding from a variety of sources. So a publicly funded university has reneged on its commitments to students. And actually, even worse than it being public monies, it's students' monies that they paid over for many, many years. And that commitment has now been reneged upon. If one was to be technical about it, the conditions under which the referendum of the student body was held at the time, there was a condition in that to say that any alteration to the conditions and the fundamental premise would invalidate that vote. So, that is something, again, that I think the Students' Union are going to pursue and consider. I think they have a very good point on that. The college have made clear, the student body have made clear, they have three, I suppose, basic asks at this point. One is that the governing body would publicly reiterate its commitment to delivering a student centre for the benefit of its students. It seems like a very basic requirement, and ensure that prioritisation of that over any other capital projects. Two, they asked that the student levy will be frozen, with no increase to that charge for a period of 5 years. It seems reasonable if we're levying for something that then is not happening. Why would we continue to pay it? So I think a freezing that levy makes a lot of sense. And thirdly, and very, very importantly, that there be transparency around this process going forward. So whatever monies have been collected in ring fence to date, where are they? How much is there? What is it being ring fenced for? What is it being used for? Is interest gathering on it? Is it being used temporarily for other projects? What is going to happen to it in the future? Is that going to be used to commission a study on the new student centre? Where does that money go? Where does that get spent? What are the next steps? There should be full accountability and transparency around that. The Students' Union do have a place in the governing body, but amongst others, they're only one voice amongst many other stakeholders. And I think it's a reasonable request. I think it's just good corporate governance, actually. But they would stress that, because they didn't expect this move. It took them off guard. It took, I think, the entire Maynooth hinterland off guard. I wasn't expecting it as a local TD. And there needs to be better communication and transparency from the college body as this issue progresses.
Concur.
Noted, Deputy Durkin. You have 2 minutes, please, Minister.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Deputy, I take your point. This project, although it did not involve, this specific project did not involve government funding and was funded by student levy and by the EIB, the university itself as a body is funded by the state largely. And I think that it's clear that Minister Harris is not shying away from this. He's not sort of distancing himself from it and saying that it's nothing to do with him, because he has met with the student body and with the governing body. And on the 3 points you made very clearly, the first question was whether the governing body will reiterate its commitment to make sure that any money collected is spent on students. And that I want to say that the university have already advised the department that monies from the fund will not be lost, and that the student levy is and will remain ring-fenced for student facilities. The second question from the Deputy was whether there would be a freeze on student levy, in other words, that they would stop collecting it in the future. And the last request was that there would be transparency about how much money has been collected and what it has been spent on. I think those are very reasonable requests. I think they're absolutely fair. I'll convey those to Minister Harris, and when he's speaking to the governing body, and when the department is communicating with the governing body, we'll make very clear that we're looking for transparency, and that any publicly funded institution should be transparent about its expenditure. Thank you.